So, a news article was released in the Daily Mail by Colonel Richard Kemp, a former British Army commander of Afghanistan. He has said how Britain would go about bringing back conscription with women and asylum seekers called up, but not Gen Z snowflakes. Pretty bold statement, but he's pretty much correct in the majority of what he says in this article. And we're going to break it down because some of the statistics that we have are pretty shocking. So, first of all, our first impression, the grime rapper Stormzy has little in common with Field Marshal Lord Kitchener. But should conscription be reintroduced in Britain, it would be the likes of Stormy, Ed Sheeran and footballing ace Harry Kane tasked with reprising the Moustache General's immortal refrain, "Your country needs you." So last week, Keir Starmer said he was ready and willing to put British boots on the ground in Ukraine. With a border that is, I believe, once again, 1,400 miles long, it's going to be a pretty hard border to basically occupy unless you've got a large force. And with the British Army only having just over 74,000 full-time personnel, of which around only 20,000 are battle-ready soldiers. That is infantry soldiers. We've got 49 battalions. Each battalion should have approximately 500 soldiers, but we know most of them are anywhere between 45 to 70% manned. So we should have around 24,500, 25,000 infantry soldiers. We've got around 20,000 infantry soldiers. So those are the guys that can actually do the actual fighting, with the support of all the other sort of armed support arms, so artillery, signals, medics, etc. RLC. Russia boasts, it says, 1.5 million active soldiers. Obviously, that has changed drastically since Ukraine and Russian war, but they are constantly drafting in new soldiers. It makes it the second largest fighting force in the world behind its close ally, China. Our army is slightly smaller than that of Romania and slightly larger than that of Armenia. Absolutely crazy, with a population of around 70 million, maybe more, between United Kingdom, England, Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. We can only get 74,000 together, and only 20,000 of them being in the infantry role. So, short of discovering a division or two soldiers behind the sofa, I'm quite sure what Starmer is thinking. The British Army is already responsible for maintaining a pair of permanent military bases in Cyprus and a garrison in the Falklands. Okay, so for those that don't know, we've got a constant rotation of soldiers going through Cyprus and Falklands that we need to maintain, as well as keeping obligations in the Baltics and other parts of the world. And that's before you factor in the need for emergency contingency battalion in domestic emergencies. Okay, so we already have a lot of commitments. So what he says, in short, we can hardly supply more than a couple of thousand troops to any peacekeeping mission in Ukraine. So I said this in a previous video, we could most probably get a battle group of around 2,500, which would most probably be anywhere from 300 to 600 infantry soldiers. The rest would once again be support arms, artillery, signals, medics, nurses, RLC, drivers, your pet ops, anything like that. Your main actual soldiers, 300 to 600, with a few obviously forward observers attached, some engineer recce's, and so on and so on. So it's not actually that much. We wouldn't be able to sort of man a large area. At the height of Afghanistan, I think we had 9,500 to 12,000 troops in Afghanistan. And then what you're going to see later in the article, you then need another load of troops to then replace them in tandem. So when they've done their 6 months, they're training for their 6 month tour. They finish their 6 month tour, and then the next lot come in. They go on to rest, and then the next lot come in to train. So it's a lot of manpower you need to maintain a 6 month operation somewhere for a large troops. So Cyprus, Falklands, same for them. You've got them currently on the tour, you've got those training to go on the tour. When they come off, they go into sort of rest and recuperation. They go on, the next lot come in to train. So we've got a lot to sort of man. So here we go. Following an emergency Cobra meeting in 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister, on advice from the Defence Secretary, would use royal prerogative powers to bypass Parliament and authorise the conscription of civilians into the armed forces. So this is him now saying, Colonel Kemp saying, how would we actually go about sort of carrying out this possible obligation of a peacekeeping mission. At the same time, emails would go out to 25,000 strong army reserve. Yes, we have a 25,000 strong army reserve. How many of them have stayed up to date with their mats and are actually fully qualified? How many of them have actually attended and are qualified? Skill fade is massive, especially if you've only ever been in the reserves, you've never been in the regulars. You're not going to be as well trained and well equipped as a regular soldier. So most of them most probably don't attend. Those that do attend most probably don't attend regularly. And then you've got a very small amount of those 25,000 that do attend regularly, really, really enjoy it. Make sure they stay fully trained and fully tested. And then some of whom are former servicemen and women, commanding them to report to the barracks up and down the country. This email would likely be followed by personal instructive calls made by regional commanding officers. The part-time soldiers would have a grace period of between 3 to 5 days to take leave from work, as this is a legal obligation, and prepare for a tour of duty that would likely last around 6 months. In times of crisis, the Army frequently calls in its proud bank of reservists, most recently during conflicts in the Balkans, Iraq and Afghanistan as well, but even the reserves would provide insufficient numbers in Ukraine. Therefore, back in Whitehall, the Ministry of Defence must decide upon eligibility criteria for conscripts, as well as determining the number required. I said it before, conscription is needed, and I can possibly see it coming back. Remember, any overseas mission requires at least 2 distinct forces operating in tandem, with soldiers serving a 6-month tour before being relieved for the same period. This is the model deployed in Afghanistan. Like I said, you've got those training to go on tour. The first lot then go on tour. They do their 6 months. While they're out there, they're doing 6 months of training to relieve them. Once they finish, they go on leave. They don't really get touched too much. They do some basic exercises. They go on tour for 6 months, and then the next lot come in to train. So you've got 3 groups of 2,500, 5. That would be 7,500 troops if we could get a battle group together. You think during the height of Afghanistan, when we had 9,500 to 12,000 out there, you then had another 9,500 to 12,000 training ready to go, and then the relieve, etc., etc. Crazy. So, Nordic countries already employ a form of conscription in the guise of mandatory military service. So these talk about Finland. I know quite a bit about Swedish as well. But according to Finland's constitution, every Finnish citizen is obligated to participate and assist in national defence. Male school leavers are obliged to serve up to a year, learning basic military skills, which they can then call upon later in life if needed. While citizens could choose between civilian and military service, the punishment for refusing outright both is a hefty 6-month jail term. 80% of men complete their term service. So the issue we would have is, if people were called up to conscription and they didn't attend, where would they go? Because our prisons are full with people just doing stupid things all the time. Not always stupid things, but people doing stupid things and a lot more serious things. We have a massive issue within the UK. Stabbings, rape, burglary, theft, murder. Really, really bad at the minute in the UK, and our prisons are full. So with that, what do we do? That's the problem. We can't really issue out prison sentences. Should Keir Starmer need an army that at short notice, we would have to perform a precarious balance in that. The greater the number of conscripts to be trained, the more experienced servicemen would have to be withdrawn from duty to do so. The more troops you bring in to train, the more sort of senior soldiers you need to bring out of service to then train up. So you need a lot of instructors. Already we have instructors going through Pirbright, Harrogate, Catterick to train the current number of recruits that we've got coming through. If you call up hundreds of thousands of soldiers, civilians to become soldiers, they need training by someone. And it's got to be the current serving personnel to do that. So then again, you're going to lose more people. What's more, as has been well publicised, Britain's barracks are already overcrowded, run down, and far too few in number to take on vast number of conscripts. Yes, We got rid of loads of our old barracks because we wanted to make money. We then made massive garrisons with single man accommodation, so single living accommodation. They get their own room en suite. In each corridor, you only get 6. Each block can only house a smaller number than what they used to. And then all the older stuff, instead of refurbishing them and keeping them just in case we sold everything off, it's all been run down. So we would actually have nowhere to house all these conscripts. If you called up 10, 20,000 conscripts, only 10, 20,000, we pretty much have nowhere to put them. We've got a few camps down south near sort of Westminster, Warminster, up in Catterick, Otterburn. There's most probably a few camps in and around there that we could possibly fill, but they're quite small, mainly used for exercises. We sold off a lot of it, knocked a lot of it down, and built massive super garrisons and gave everyone single living accommodations. We don't actually have the space. The military states team would be urgently tasked with sourcing additional accommodation classrooms and mess halls, which would be very, very hard. In a likelihood, venues formerly commanded as Nightingale hospitals during a pandemic, such as the XL Centre in East London, would be turned into makeshift military barracks. They would have to be. The next question, of course, is who to call up. That's a great question. When conscription was introduced in 1916, it applied to all single men aged 18 to 41. Obviously, that would be different now, and he covers this because women have equality, the same sort of roles within men. Every role within the British Army is open to men and women, and he does cover this. Also, women now, they have careers, they have full-time jobs. They're not really stay-at-home mums now. So pretty much what he's saying is you'd have to conduct a gender-blind basis conscription, which I totally agree with. It is just how it is. It says he reckons possibly aged 18 to 30. I reckon you should do it 18 to 25 because you still need a lot of males and females back at home to sort of carry out the stuff to keep the world, the UK still going, manufacturing, all your electricity, your water, your food, all the basics that we're going to need if we do go to war. But even if you just got UK in peacekeeping operation, you still need people to do your retail, your actual everyday work, so that UK can still have its economy. You're just sending off soldiers to carry out a peacekeeping mission within Ukraine. So something like 18 to 25, males and females would be fine. But then the issue you've got there is what he says. Listen to this. Where is it? As of 2023, the government estimates more than 60% of adult population is overweight. So we would massively struggle then. A condition that prevents serving as in an active role. So even if you called up, 200,000 of the 8 million people that would possibly be called up from 18 to 30, cut it down to 18 to 25, possibly 4 million people, 60% of them are overweight. It's absolutely crazy. You've then got chronic illnesses such as diabetes, asthma, epilepsy, and other sort of illnesses that stop people from serving. We would massively struggle to call people up. The presence of mental health issues would also pose a major problem. As we currently know, so many people have suffered with minor depression when they were younger and now trying to join the army actually can't. The medical will not let them. So we've got a large population that we can call up, but because of the way the world is, our eating habits, our physical exercise habits, just the way we live now, and the amount of people that get illnesses, etc., or are diagnosed with possible illnesses that may not even have those illnesses, will take a large number of these people that will not be able to call up as conscripts. 5.6%, it says here, suffer with anxiety disorder, which a number is high among younger people. No doubt hundreds of thousands of 18 to 30-year-olds would avoid the draft claiming mental health conditions. We know they will. We see the polls online. That's what I mean. It says suddenly here 8 million would be half for medical reasons alone. Like I said, if you did 18 to 25, possibly 4 million people, that cuts you down massively. Then people have to pass fitness tests. People have to actually pass training. You think you've got a lot of people to call up for conscription, but because of the way the world is, the way we live now, we're unhealthy. There's so many mental health issues. There isn't actually as many people to call up as you want. And because it's so easy to get out of things now, and people are not patriotic about being in the UK anymore. They would come up with some form of excuse to say, I can't go because I've got this. And they would not go because they do not agree possibly with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, but they just do not like the country at the minute, mainly down to the government. So massive issues here, as you can see. Actually very disturbing. I did call that we will possibly need conscription. We need a fast way to basically improve and increase recruitment, but we also need to improve and increase retention. Retention's the big one. You've got really good, highly professional trained soldiers that you've spent so much money on. You want to try and keep them. Figure out how you can keep them. That's the best thing you can do. Then work on increasing recruitment and in conscription. With conscription, I think you're going to have a massive issue because so many people are going to fake sort of mental health and injuries just because people are not patriotic anymore, and two, the government have let them down so much. They do not agree with anything that they say. They do not want to fight for the current government, and I don't blame them with everything that they've done. But I think if conscription gets called up, me personally, I'll just be like, yeah, cool, I'll go. That's fine. But that's just my mentality. Not everyone agrees with that. But yeah, please do comment below with what your thoughts are on this. I'll be very interested to hear what you've got to say. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.